To our top story, and OPEC Plus has announced a surprise cut of over 1 million barrels per day. Brent and WTI both surging in Asia trade this morning. We have seen prices rocketing up on this announcement. Both contracts better by 5% as we speak, with WTI sub 80, but Brent climbing towards $85 a barrel. Saudi Arabia and Russia will both cut by 500,000 barrels per day, indicating the move is to ensure market stability. The changes are going to take place from next month and include other producers: the UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, Algeria, Oman and Kazakhstan. The cut comes before a ministerial meeting that was scheduled for today, where OPEC was expected to hold production levels. So Hadley, when you look at the implications of all of this, I think concerns about a lack of spare capacity have really become more acute in recent weeks. We have just come through the biggest shock to the financial system since COVID and the GFC, a systemically critical bank takeover in Europe and the collapse of others in the United States. Credit conditions are tightening, demand looks more fragile and sentiment has soured. I think politics alone don't explain this cut. I think OPEC Plus is responding with urgency to a big change in market conditions.
I mean, Dan, at the end of the day, this is OPEC Plus doing really, frankly, what is it exactly it is supposed to be doing, which is literally working in tandem with the market to keep us stabilized. And you just think about it, this is how OPEC Plus sees the world. We're right smack in the middle of Ramadan out here, as you know, and while that's traditionally a pretty quiet time, they're not opposed to making some headlines when it suits them, and you can see that playing out right now. This is an organization led by Saudi Arabia that's just been watching the fundamentals very closely. And when I spoke with His Royal Highness just a few weeks ago in Saudi Arabia, the fragility of global markets was very much in his mind. And this decision is no doubt in response, not just to the roller coaster ride we've all been on, but basically how the kingdom sees the world's response.
Exactly. And I also tweeted this out this morning, but just to add some additional context to this, only 6 months ago, we saw His Royal Highness actually saying that we will need to build perhaps reserve capacity here, and those that don't have reserve capacity could feel some pain into the future. Ultimately, what we're seeing here as well is OPEC responding to market conditions, because he did say losing emergency stock will be more painful in the months to come. The question that I have now, though, and I think we can unpack this a little more through the course of the hour, what does it mean for the United States? Is this going to put Saudi Arabia on a collision course with the US? What does President Biden do now? Does he tap the reserve? Does he pressure domestic producers? Does he back OPEC? Does he do nothing? I mean, the options are on the table. Whether or not he decides to pull the trigger in response to this is a key question. And ultimately as well, we need to know more about how higher oil prices are going to impact the inflation and interest rate trajectory, which is critical for markets at this time as well.
And we also got to know exactly how this is going to play out to the American public, because at the end of the day, you know, we're in spring right now, but we're coming up on summer. That's the peak driving season, as you know. We've got a lot of concerns, frankly, within both sides of the aisle about what higher oil prices could mean for the economy. Sentiment, of course, versus what the markets have been doing. And frankly, people are looking at their pocketbooks and saying, you know, this is a time of high inflation and we're having trouble making ends meet. So this is definitely going to be political, whether OPEC Plus likes it or not. But at the end of the day, what His Royal Highness and others have done, including the Russians, I might add, is just to do what they are supposed to do, again, which is to stabilize the market. Now, the question, of course, comes, what does this mean for President Putin's war machine, for example? We know when it comes to oil prices, he needs a certain price, if you will, to continue the onslaught in Ukraine. And we have seen that despite the best efforts from Western allies, that price cap has not really done what they said it was going to do.